Hey guys, Kevin Shaw here, Editor-in-Chief of the Watercraft Journal. Today's video is going to be a little different. I feel it's very important that I talk about this topic as there is a lot of misinformation going out. It's not going to be the usual live session that we do on Sundays, and it's definitely not going to be a quick topic, which typically runs anywhere from 2 minutes to 5 minutes. This is going to run a little long, but I think it's really important. Unfortunately, what we have to talk about is more government intervention in your life, which I don't think anyone enjoys. But right now, there is a lot of concern regarding the EPA and its National Compliance Initiative, particularly in regards to defeat devices. And what that means for personal watercraft, what that means for you and me, what that means for the performance market, and eventually what it means for personal watercraft racing. It bears noting that this EPA change in policy is actually nothing new. Back in 2018, the EPA changed what was called the National Enforcement Initiative to the National Compliance Initiative, which also changed a couple of its rules in how it literally enforced these certain regulations. And why they went to a compliance initiative is actually a holdover of the Trump administration and the persons there. There were certain loopholes put in for specific vehicles, for different states and state legislatures. And so what we're seeing today, although really is weaponized by a very aggressive EPA, there are certain statutes put in place that, believe it or not, will actually help us out. But let's kind of cut through a lot of the BS and let's really get down to brass tacks. I typically don't bring up other outlets in regards to the information that they put out, unless it's really glowing and it's a very positive thing. In this case, I really have to make a major correction. There was a video produced by another personal watercraft enthusiast here on YouTube. Unfortunately, almost every single point he made was wrong. And not just wrong, but egregiously wrong. And there was some really poor reading of the law. There's some really bad interpretation of the law. And then unfortunately, he didn't do any of his supplementary research. And so I'm going to have to do that here. And this is why it's going to run a little long. And I apologize for you guys who are looking for something short and quick. But I feel, again, it's really important that everyone get a very strong understanding. Additionally, I'm also going to put all the links to the articles I reference here on my computer, which you can see in the camera right there. You're going to be able to, I'm going to put those links in the description of this video. And I want you to be able to click them. I want you to be able to see what I'm seeing and read what I'm reading and come to the same understanding. You don't have to believe me. You can read it with your own eyes. Okay? So right now, the EPA is standing on an initiative that is trying to make defeat devices illegal. And not just possession or installation of defeat devices, but the actual manufacture and sale of defeat devices. Well, what on earth is a defeat device? And for those who don't know, a defeat device is something that alters the emissions output of any motorized vehicle. And this whole policy came into being, came into action initially at the beginning of the second term of the Obama administration. And we're looking around 2012, 2013. And certain initiatives were passed to regulate the emissions produced by diesel trucks. And what was unique in this was that there were a few technical loopholes, just kind of open areas, because more often than not, these laws are written by people who literally have no idea what they're talking about. Anyone who is a Second Amendment enthusiast will unanimously say that Second Amendment and gun control laws are written and passed by people who typically have zero idea what they're talking about. And in this case, with diesel trucks and performance diesel vehicles, the same can be said. And what was happening was that diesel performance parts manufacturers quickly learned workarounds, and this was the beginning of the rolling coal trend. And people were able to do big smoky burnouts and dump huge amounts of black smoke in the air and then switch that system off, or in many cases be completely smog compliant. On the flip side, there are certain loopholes and avenues for states to not even have to smog check any of these vehicles. By 2018, persons within the EPA were just apoplectic over seeing the new trends happening in diesel trucks and people participating in rolling coal competitions and and just seeing these things on the street, and they were losing their minds. And so they quickly rushed a lot of legislation in, and that legislation was designed to put an end to this very specific trend. When this happened, the legislation that was composed resulted in a reaction from the SEMA organization, and that is the Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association. These are the people who build high-performance parts for Camaros and Mustangs and Dodge Chargers and Jeeps and pickup trucks and you name it. The SEMA, the very famous SEMA event that happens every year in Las Vegas, is to allow these manufacturers to put their new wares in front of potential buyers, shops, installers, and the general public. What is very unique and very specific in these pieces of legislature is the fact that it pertains to, while it says all motorized vehicles, and they mention specifically on-road and off-road, they are speaking pointedly at trucks, automobiles, surprisingly enough, locomotives and airplanes. And I will put those links in there, and I will tell you where to look. And that they outline modifications done to vehicles that are stringently tested for emissions. A lot of these unique equipment applications cannot be tampered with. What is very unique in the case of the EPA's definition of a defeat device is that they put in a very specific line, and that line says these items, these products that help circumvent any mandatory or regulated emissions device, any equipment, any parts that circumvent these things are illegal, whether the vehicle passes emission standards or not. That's the problem. And in 2018, the SEMA organization helped rally a whole lot of people, including bipartisan support by state and national legislators, and they passed the RPM Act, all right, to preserve motor racing, motor performance. Obviously, a classic car that never came with smog equipment would not qualify for this. But we're talking a relatively modern vehicle. Now, this is the EPA's website that I have up right now, okay? And this is the announcement and the outline of the National Compliance Initiative to Stop Aftermarket Defeat Devices. Now, what they do is it's a very basic proposal. They present a problem, they present a goal, they present results. Now, going back to the initial problem, and this was going back to 2018, was in addressing a lot of the rolling coal pickup trucks. The EPA actually took several of these companies to court. And in 31 of these cases, the EPA won. And they brag about it here. They're like, oh, we won 31 cases. Okay, that sounds like a lot. Well, you look up how many cases they filed. There was over 1,100 cases filed. Well, 31 out of 1,100 is a pretty bad batting score. Okay. Nevertheless, they won, and there were certain rulings that came about from those. All right, and it actually supported a lot of the EPA's effort. All right. So, what do we do with this? Because they're saying that you cannot modify you can't modify any of these machines. Yeah, the production, the sale, and the installation of these products is in fact illegal. And they cite, and they keep going back to it. I'm going to highlight it right here. Okay. It says Title II of the Clean Air Act, the CAA, authorizes the EPA to set standards applicable to emissions from a variety of vehicles and engines. Required emission controls often include filters and catalysts installed in the vehicle's or engine's exhaust system, as well as calibrations that manage fueling strategy and other operations on the engine itself. Says the CAA, which is the Clean Air Act, prohibits tampering with emissions controls, as well as manufacturing, selling, and installing aftermarket devices intending to defeat those controls. Okay, so they are basing this argument upon Title II of the Clean Air Act. So, let's look at the Clean Air Act. All right? It's on the EPA's website. Clean Air Act, Title II, Emission Standards for Moving Sources, Parts A through C. We literally look at the subheadings here. And you'll have the links. Motor vehicle emissions and fuel standards, aircraft emissions, clean fuel vehicles. The subsections that I've clicked through, and I have probably 80% of every subsection clicked here because I've been reading everything. All right. Allows for a few things. I've read about civil penalties and what your penalties would be. EPA could confiscate your modified jet ski and crush it, just like they would take your modified car and crush it. That is not listed in civil penalties. All right, it's all revenue collection. It's all taxation. All right. But it sets new emission standards and allows the EPA to set emission standards for new motor vehicles and new motor vehicle engines. Okay, and it's pretty damn vague because again, we're talking about people who not only don't know what they're talking about, they've never ran a business before for the most part. The biggest things that I want to talk about are state standards, and what is classified as non-road engines in vehicles. What it specifies here as non-road vehicles, it's not talking about boats. It's not talking about airplanes. All right? It's talking about cars or vehicles that are licensed and registered as non-road vehicles. Interestingly enough, what would qualify for a non-road vehicle, these are committed race cars. These are the kinds of cars that don't have license plates. They're not street worthy. They don't have headlights or taillights or turn signals or a working horn. All right? Those are non-road vehicles. We're not talking about non-operation vehicles like half of my project cars. I'm talking about non-road vehicles, cars that do not meet the DMV standards. All right? That's a non-road vehicle. Nothing too crazy there. Okay? At no point in this paragraph or in this subsection do they bring up anything regarding marine, aquatic use. There's no language in here. And there's no sweeping language to assume that it's even in there. But what it does bring up are vehicles equipped with smog reducing or emissions reducing equipment. All right? Catalytic converters are laid out in here. All right? Filtration systems are laid out in here. Well, I'm curious, when was the last time you saw a personal watercraft with a catalytic converter? None of them exist. All right? These vehicles do not come equipped with anything remotely close to smog equipment. All right? Including an outboard engine for a small fishing boat. None of these. There's nothing in here. All right? This whole subchapter does not have anything in there. And you can read it. You can honestly, I want you to read it. I really do want you to read it. Non-road engines and vehicles do not include marine engines or marine applications. It's not in there. And in the Clean Air Act, it mentions state standards. Now, interestingly enough, there's conflicting information in state standards because the federal government is trying to impose a federal standard that the states must comply with. They're trying to say this is what we got. The problem is we all know certain states require emissions testing and others don't. Some require VIN verification. Some require all sorts of different testing and others don't. So just for fun, I looked up vehicle inspection in the United States and Wikipedia popped up. And I know, Wikipedia, right? Wikipedia is pretty bad. But just for fun. Well, I'm looking at the map and gosh darn it, I'm seeing almost a dozen states that have zero inspections for anything required. So again, guys, we're looking at states that are thumbing their nose at the EPA. One of them being the largest PWC market in the country and the U.S. being the largest PWC market in the world. So the very tip of the spear, Florida, doesn't do any emissions testing for vehicles, for motor vehicles, not to mention marine vehicles. So again, we need to make points here that although the EPA is trying to crack down on emissions, we are a very, very long way away from them coming down on Riva or JP Racing or Dean Cherry or Dean's team or any number of performance outlets. The EPA does not give two rats about jet skis with a turbo on them. They don't care. Let's keep looking at what they've written and read their words. All right? The original EPA compliance initiative that was proposed to the Air Enforcement Division on March 17, 2021. All right? This was when the original National Compliance Initiative was proposed. Not January 1st, not the beginning of the year. It was here. All right. And I have the actual proposal. I have the PDF. It's right on the screen. I'm going to read it to you. All right. First and foremost, here we go. It's not about pickup trucks. Big bold letters. EPA investigations find tampering in aftermarket defeat devices for heavy-duty trucks, light-duty cars, agricultural equipment, forestry equipment, construction equipment, and more. All right. So in their proposal, they again brag that they won 31 of these civil enforcement cases. These are civil enforcement cases. These are not federal. This is not a federal indictment. It's a civil enforcement case. All right? The NSA or federal sheriffs are not doing no-knock raids at 4 in the morning, kicking in your front door and dragging you out into the street because you've got a stage 2 kit on your FZR Yamaha. This isn't happening. That is a lie. You are stirring up fear. But now they've got a little bit of momentum behind them, and now they've got a completely weaponized Washington, D.C., giving them whatever they want. That still should not let you think that they're going to confiscate your skis someday. So, this is the goal that they have. This is what they want. Let's see if you can pick up on what's missing. The following acts and the causing thereof are prohibited for any person to manufacture or sell or offer to sell or install any part or component intended for use with or as part of any motor vehicle or motor vehicle engine where a principal effect of the part or component is to bypass, defeat, or render inoperative any device or element of design installed on or in a motor vehicle or motor vehicle engine in compliance with regulations under this subchapter. We read the subchapter. We looked at it. And where the person knows or should know that such part or component is being offered for sale or installed for such use or put to such use. Guys, I want you to tell me what on a 300 ACE engine is designed for emissions. They don't have any, do they? So what does that mean? They are not compliant with this initiative. Again, they do not qualify. Right? Again, that's the entire point. You got to read this. You got to read it, and you got to think objectively. They're trying to say it's a crime, but what's the punishment? It's a fine. It's a fine. They don't confiscate your stuff. They don't raid your garage. All right? Federal U.S. Marshals are not raiding Riva Racing and taking all the intake manifolds and map tuner X's off the shelves. This isn't contraband. They're not smuggling drugs. Understand me. There's a lot of other really heinous stuff that's happening, but they're not coming after jet skis. But if you live somewhere where you have to smog check your boat, okay, maybe it's a problem. But I'll tell you what, there's no smog equipment, there's no emissions equipment on your personal watercraft. There's none. So, you're exempt. I don't know how to belabor this anymore. I know I'm being pedantic. I know I'm being condescending. I apologize. It's late, and I've spent a lot of today reading legalese. But I want everyone who can hear my voice to know they're not coming after your jet skis. Not yet, anyway. The EPA did not shut down two-strokes. They didn't. It was not federal. Two-strokes are still allowed to operate on many federal lakes and federal property. BLM, Bureau of Land Management. What was crushing two-stroke usage was individual state mandates. It's the states. You don't like it? Write your congressman. But it was the states. It did not come down from the EPA. All right? Guys, I hope this helps. I'm going to try to trim a few minutes out of this. I want to make it digestible. I definitely want everyone to be able to hear this and get the information they need. And I am going to put all the links in the description of this video. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate you watching. Definitely give this a thumbs up. Leave a comment. If you have something to add to this conversation, please do. Hey, guys. Thanks for hanging out. This clip was taken from our weekly podcast that we record here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you want to watch the whole video, you can go to the Watercraft Journal's YouTube channel, go to playlists, and then click on live sessions. You're going to see it there. Otherwise, go ahead and leave a like, a comment, and definitely subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow. And again, thanks again for watching our videos, and we hope to see you soon.